Good afternoon, my friends. It feels like forever since I've got to chat with you. But a case that I have had on my mind for a very long time is that of, as it's been dubbed in the media, the good old media, the West Memphis 3. See right there? 3 walk 3 on the left hand of your screen. Then we have the victims. Some would say there are 6 victims. I do believe there are 6 victims besides countless members of the community, of course, the family. But the main victims are Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers. Here they are again. Then, of course, we have Damian Eccles, Jesse Miskelly, and Jason Baldwin. Some people will still say that there's plenty of evidence that should have kept them locked up forever. I would maybe years ago believe that, because look, I don't need the Dixie Chicks, Pearl Jam, and Johnny Depp to make my mind up for me. However, we have a little thing called DNA. And now what they have done is they have pulled what they call genetic markers from the DNA. Now, the DNA back in the day was never tested. Reason being, it just wasn't common back then. Well, this is from KATV in Little Rock. If you want to catch up on what happened with the 3 that were accused and released, please check out the documentary called Paradise Lost. But in the meantime, they still have to find out who murdered Chris, Michael, and Steve. And I think with this new DNA, hell, who knows who it could be. They were not far from I-40. There is a truck stop not far from there. All kinds of, I'm just going to say, not great people that hang around some of those places that could have done something. There's a lot of could haves, but I believe with this genetic marking that they're doing, this new DNA testing, they're going to find something. Please go through this with me. Please watch it to the end.
Well, good evening to you. We're going to begin tonight with an in-depth investigation of one of Arkansas's most notorious crimes and the new technology that could help solve it once and for all. Channel 7's Andrew Mobley went searching for answers in the child murders at Robin Hood Hills. Who killed 3 8-year-old West Memphis boys more than 30 years ago?
From Arkansas's most watched news team, this is Channel 7 News at 6.
Good evening. An East Arkansas town is stunned tonight after the apparent murder of 3 young boys. I'm Andy Pearson.
I'm Gina Curry. Folks in West Memphis have their guards up tonight. Some of them not even letting their kids out of their sight.
Good call. I wouldn't either. I live in Northeast Oklahoma, and when this hit my news, my face about fell off. Then they just almost instantly, to my memory, produced these 3 dudes. They said they're satanic. They have long hair. They listen to heavy metal music. A lot of people were like, so? Back in that era, most people were like, well, is there any fingerprints? People didn't really talk about DNA there. What they failed to mention is that the confession came from someone who has the IQ of, I would say, an elementary school child, and that is Jesse Miskelly.
On May 5th, 1993, the naked, hog-tied bodies of 8-year-olds Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore were found submerged in a drainage ditch in a patch of woods in West Memphis. Police suggested they had been raped and one boy castrated. They said one had been beaten to death, the others drowned. The shocking crime led many to believe it may have been the work of a satanic cult.
The satanic panic that gripped the community was palpable.
West Memphis police needed to find a culprit fast, but critics say they made critical mistakes in their investigation, mishandling or failing to collect evidence and failing to pursue leads.
Detective Ridge, what is the date that you sent the blood scrapings off to the crime lab to be analyzed?
They were never sent.
They were never sent?
That's correct.
Where are the blood samples at this time?
I don't know, sir. They're lost.
They soon arrested 3 teenagers, Jesse Miskelly.
He said they were never sent. They were never sent. You know why? Because they didn't even know where to send them. They were that ignorant at the time. We're not talking about last year, my friends. Talking a long time ago. They just thought good old-fashioned rough interrogation in their own brand of gumshoe detective work would get a conviction. Well, it did, but it wasn't the right one because the DNA does not match these 3. Now, Eccles, Miskelly, and Baldwin, yes, they did take an Alford plea. Many people say, why? Why would they do that if they're innocent? Easy. They want to get the hell out of jail. They want to get out of there. Damien was going to be put to death. And again, some people say no, they had the right people in the first place. Well, we'll see with these genetic markers who they're going to track down.
Damien Eccles and Jason Baldwin for murder, with little to go on but Miskelly's doubtful confession. They accused the boys of belonging to a satanic cult. Dan Stidham, then a young part-time public defender with no jury trial experience, was asked to represent Miskelly. Stidham quickly became convinced of his innocence. Stidham, like many others, believes West Memphis police coerced a false confession out of Miskelly, who was later said in court proceedings to have the IQ of a 7-year-old child. Police interviewed Miskelly for hours, but recorded less than an hour. The confession they got out of Miskelly had glaring inaccuracies.
There was a lot of shenanigans that were going on, prosecutorial misconduct. There was at one point where the lead prosecutor was meeting with my client at the jail behind my back. I didn't even know he was meeting with him, which is a clear violation.
According to Stidham, Judge David Burnett, who presided over the West Memphis 3 trials, took an inappropriately aggressive approach to the case, displaying a bias that the 3 were guilty and actually aiding the prosecution.
He manipulated the juries throughout the trials.
Despite a lack of physical evidence and dubious testimony from individuals who later recanted their statements, the 3 teenagers were convicted. Eccles was sentenced to death and Baldwin and Miskelly to life in prison. Years of appeals, legal maneuvering, and new DNA testing would follow. In 2011, a retrial seemed imminent, but instead of going to trial and risking defeat, the state of Arkansas offered the West Memphis 3 a deal to let them go free. An Alford plea in which they pled guilty but maintained their innocence.
And everybody thought we were going to get a new trial. Even the prosecutors admitted it. And then all of a sudden, this Alford plea comes out of nowhere.
The West Memphis 3 took the deal in 2011 and were set free. But to this day...
Yes, they took the Alford plea and they were set free. This is where the people come in that say, well, they took it because they were guilty. They took it because they were guilty. That does happen. Oh, that does. I'm going to maintain my innocence, but I'm going to plead guilty and you're going to let me the hell out of here. In this case, when they were challenged for a new trial, I think that's when new evidence came out. I said, I think that the state of Arkansas wasn't about to recognize, because then that opens them up for a huge lawsuit. If you have seen the documentary Paradise Lost, tell me what you think. It is copyrighted head to toe. So I can't even put clips in here from it. Also, there's many books about this case. Let me know what you know and what you think. Please leave me a comment, but we're not done yet. No, no, no.
The shadow of their convictions has hung heavy over their lives. Even some of the murdered boys' parents became convinced the West Memphis Three were innocent.
They're innocent. They did not kill my son. And this is wrong what the state of Arkansas is doing to cover their ass.
I want true justice, and now we'll never know. I mean, I thought there was going to be a trial, and them crackerjack police officers and attorneys that was on, or the investigators that was on this case in 1993, they messed up, and now the state of Arkansas, it's just like they want to sweep it under the rug, and it's over.
1993. We are sitting in 2025, and they're still trying to find out what happened to these three beautiful little boys. And one, Damien, he would have been put to death. That is the problem, my friends. When people say, well, why did they take the Alford plea? You know why? Because had they lost the second trial, Damien would be deader than a doornail now. Somebody rattled the right cage, and now the DNA has been picked apart, to use simple terms, for genetic markers. All right? And by the way, don't be afraid of doing those ancestry DNA kits. You got nothing to hide. But if it helps a case like these beautiful little boys, then it's damn sure worth it.
It's over for everybody else, but it continues to live on for me every day.
But if Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly didn't kill the three little boys in West Memphis all those years ago, that means the real killer is still out there. Byers and Hicks both came to believe that police failed to adequately investigate someone they both knew. DNA testing in 2007 turned up no match for the West Memphis Three at the crime scene, but it did turn up a partial match for one of the murdered boys' stepfathers and Pam's ex-husband, Terry Hobbs.
Mr. Hobbs, the other stepfather, we can't account for where he was every hour and every minute.
Patrick Benka, part of Damien Eccles' legal team, says that despite the evidence pointing to Hobbs coming to light in 2007, authorities made little to no effort investigating him.
The interview that they did of Mr. Hobbs subsequent to that finding that his hair was at the scene, the interview was comical. I mean, they literally asked him like 2 or 3 questions and said, "Good day."
Stidham says he and the West Memphis Three's other attorneys have a theory as to what may have happened.
But we're going to have a smoking gun. We're going to have more than just the DNA. We're going to have corroboration. And there were 2 witnesses that saw Terry Hobbs with the boys that night, yelling at him to go home, which he denies.
Stidham has another theory as to who may have murdered the little boys, whose bodies were found a stone's throw from a Highway 40 truck stop. DNA belonging to other unknown individuals was found at the crime scene, DNA that can now be tested with new state-of-the-art technology.
If we get enough genetic markers from the new DNA testing, and we can compare it to my suspect to the long-haul truck driver.
Stidham says his suspect is currently in prison for other slayings. The FBI says it has a pool of hundreds of suspects, all long-haul truckers, for nearly 1,000 suspected serial killings along America's highways.
Okay, this actually makes a little bit of sense. Horrific, but makes sense. This is where, let me rephrase. A case like this, which I wish was solved years ago, is the reason that I cannot stand microwave justice. And when I mean microwave justice, I mean when you see people say, why don't they arrest them already? Sounds well and good. Hey, it's not my life. It's not your life, but I get it. But we're talking about true justice, a true conviction, because they did make fast arrests. These boys were hogtied. They were naked. One had been AR'd, if you know what I mean. But they had the wrong people. They weren't about to admit it. That's the reason they did their little legal maneuver and said, how about an alpha plea? Now they're like, we have hundreds of suspects. But the attorney is saying one in particular. I personally go back to Terry Hobbs. I also want to know who was the man in the restaurant with blood all over him that washed up in the bathroom. I do want to know.
Stidham didn't divulge his suspect's name. The two theories we've mentioned and a myriad others have been offered over the years, but now, finally, we may soon have answers. In April this year, the Arkansas Supreme Court approved new DNA testing in the case, ending a 2-year legal battle fought by Eccles' lawyers to get the green light to retest DNA evidence previously thought to have been lost by the West Memphis Police Department. The DNA will be tested using the MVAC system, an advanced instrument that can actually extract minute particles from inside fabric. Eccles' lawyers will use it to extract DNA from the shoelaces that bound the 3 murdered boys.
They're going to go in there and literally unknot those ligatures where they know that those skin cells are tucked in that fabric, and then they're going to extract them. I think there's no question that we're going to find out who tied those knots.
Becca says results for the new DNA testing will come back early next year. If it can determine who tied the knots, the West Memphis 3 may have a chance at the exoneration they have long fought for, and the real killer may soon face justice.
I'm a full-time judge and I can't get involved in the actual defense, but I'll resign my judgeship immediately if we were to get a new trial.
Absolutely crazy. And the type of DNA extraction they're talking about was used in the case of Morgan Nick. She disappeared in 1995 from Alma, Arkansas. We did a show about her. And through this DNA extraction, well, they found out who did it. You know, the guy's dead and gone. They know who it is. So it's time to find the real killer. Please watch this to the end. Share it, because these cases are extremely important. Please leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Thank you for being here for the right reasons, and you are absolutely the best.